Love and longing. It had been several days since the last major blow against the Orega girls. It had taken that long and an army of bureaucrats to sort everything out, as well as organize a victory celebration. The Empress was milking this hard and had invited all the sorcerers and all her princesses to it. It's like being lost in a sea of people, Vernon notes, uncomfortable at the absolutely massive crowd of people. If not for Miro Noir, he'd have simply passed on attending. Too many people, too many sounds, and too much everything. Only holding her close brings him relief. Not that he wasn't already. He was in Apuk-based formal clothing with a bit of stitching to cover what he's lacking in the tail department. Not that one could really tell, as tailcoats and ruffles with lace sleeves poking out from under his coat sleeve were all very annoying, and he could feel the elaborate designs pluck at his arm hairs and such. Never been fond of big parties, have you? Miro Noir teases somewhat, and he nods. Not particularly. Too many everythings. Thankfully, I have you to focus on my love, something far more pleasant than any number of royal get-togethers. Oh? Well, thankfully, we only need to put on a short appearance and we can go back to enjoying one another once more. Miro Noir notes with a smile. Her Vernon has all sorts of little peculiarities and could grow increasingly uncomfortable in larger and larger crowds. The music shifts somewhat and he smiles. His hair moves oddly as well, as he has small leafy vines growing in his hair to both signify himself as a sorcerer but not disrupt the formality of the event. It was a strange compromise and likely to set a fashion trend of some kind, especially as he had talked his fellows into it. Tell me, my dear, when was the last time we danced? Vernon asks, as he takes her by the hand and waist to lead her into the dance floor. Oh, Vernon, she gushes with a smile. They turn together and hold each other close. Yesterday. They sweep over the impromptu dance floor and begin to dance, Vernon visibly relaxing as he focuses entirely on the dance and her. She smiles as they dance around and spots several different interesting groups. Brenda Crushclaw is showing off something on her communicator to many of the royal guard while also speaking to them and recording her son being shown how to dance in the traditional Apuk style by his half-sisters. Bryn Char is sipping wine nearby and looks somewhat exhausted but otherwise very fulfilled. Speaking of the Chars, Dare Char is being almost carried by the much larger Apuk girls who seem to be just straight up gushing over him. Every time he gets passed off to another one of his half-sisters, they start taking more pictures of him. To say that the Char family has accepted him in is an understatement. They seem dead set on making up for lost time. And there goes Morg. How long do you think he can keep that up now that he's even more popular? Vernon asks, and they turn to let her see Morg Arcoon staying out of reach of an army of women, some of them propositioning, others trying to tempt him with their siblings or daughters. None of them are getting anything other than an amused smile as he stays out of reach and is staying just close enough to keep them coming. I'm not sure, but I am fairly certain he's going to lead them on at least a few laps. There's actually a bit of a bet among the princesses as to how he's going to finally be caught. Oh, and where are your credits, my dear? I assume that one year he's going to simply show up and have a wife. Of course, at that point, there's going to be some wonderful rumors that she's someone he's roped into, taunting everyone else, and the chase begins anew with one of them carrying the other, and the games continue even further. Ah, so he's been playing for so long that no one will believe him if he suddenly stops playing. A fair assessment. Although there's also the chance that he might simply trip one of these days and the horde in pursuit may catch up. Vernon offers and Miro Noir giggles at the idea of the big, bad bachelor sorcerer suddenly stumbling and ending up underneath an avalanche of royal ladies looking to bring a sorcerer into the family. They turn with the music a little more and Miro Noir giggles at the sight of little Mux Moro getting a boost from Jeth Urla so they can better raid the snack table. They grab an entire platter of something sweet-looking and are off to enjoy their prize somewhere else. They arrive at a table on the edge just in time for Dale to arrive with a pitcher of water and a couple glasses so they have something to wash it down with. There's a hint of a pair of glasses being adjusted by an... No, that's not an Apuk. It's Koga. He's just adjusted his body language to match his surroundings and blend in. Amazing. Something wrong? Vernon asks her, ever attentive. Just that friend of yours, he's feigning being an Apuk without horns or tail and achieving it with sheer presence. Ah, Koga. Yeah, he's brushed up on a lot of his half-remembered skills and such. Lost himself in the world of retraining and teaching in the last 6 months that there were times he couldn't tell what day it was. Things got really funny when he tried to train up relying on his other senses by blindfolding himself, and he had a hard time telling day or night, he was so busy. Also, I think the woods were deliberately messing with him by keeping songbirds awake at night and cooling down during the day. The woods have a sense of humor? How alive is the dark forest? The woods pick up on the thoughts and feelings of those it's connected to. When Koga was training, it was widely agreed that it would be very funny if he lost all track of time while blindfolded. The woods obliged, and the prank was had. If Koga was listening more to the woods and less to his ears, then he would have known what was going on. It's all very strange. I don't have to compete with the forest for you now, do I? Miro Noir teases, and Vernon snorts at the idea. Of course not. The woods does not think or act as a person does. There's awareness and memory, yes, it knows and it has some desires. But that's almost all there is. It is wise and intelligent, but it has none of the urges or impulses of a person. It's an abstract thing, as much a living axiom construct as the plants that form its physical self. Each little part and each sorcerer contributes slightly, but no part is essential. So the woods are both an extension of me and an ally that asks for very little from me. Really? Oh yes, Vernon says before kissing Miro Noir quickly. You have nothing to worry about. There is no competition. Oh really? A voice says from the side, and both of them turn to behold a ravishingly beautiful Apuk in a low-cut dress the color of softest cream. Really? Vernon says, turning away without a second thought. There's a mild choking sound of astonishment, and the noble scion huffs away as Miro Noir fights down her giggles. What's so funny? Oh, just how you don't even stop to consider any other woman. Do you even know who she is? Oh, probably someone born into wealth and prestige who thinks that if they just follow the directions of their personal trainer and some silly plan of theirs that they can get whatever they want without effort or thought. Vernon dismisses her entirely, and the fight against the giggles just became much, much harder. She's the granddaughter of the Empress, Miro Noir says softly. Whoop-dee-doo. She's not you, so she's not getting me. He asserts plainly as he makes a point of leading the dance away from the would-be suitor, and Miro Noir loses the battle against giggling and all but collapses onto him. He then sweeps her up into his arms and carries her to a not-too-distant table. Can I tempt you with something off the snack table? After a few moments, she manages to get the giggling under control and coughs into her gloved hand. Perhaps some water. The children ran off with my favorite, but I shan't begrudge them that. Do you have a second favorite to point out, or perhaps something you'd recommend I try? Oh, don't worry about me. I just need a few moments to settle and regain myself. Although the water would be amazing, she says, and he all but glides off, leaving her to sigh as she watches him go. How the hell did you get any man to be that obsessively loyal? Someone behind her asks, and she sighs in satisfaction. Okay, that sounds wonderful, but I do need words to understand you. Give and receive. Give and receive. I struggled to be as loyal as him, and that makes him put in all the effort to be as loyal to me. She sighs in happiness before turning to see the granddaughter again. You want that kind of man in your life? Be ready to make sure you're the best thing in his life. And you can't do it by breaking other things, but by being the best for him. Can you do that? She says nothing, but slinks away, looking thoughtful. Vernon returns with a heaping platter that is the entire snack table in miniature, including a few snagged snacks from the platter the children stole and a hefty pitcher of water with a pair of glasses. "Thank you, Vernon," she says, and notes that he's relaxing as he's closer to her again. They're going to have to leave soon, as much fun as a party can be. Her Vernon is far from fond of them. A pity. It's odd that someone who can bring in so much excitement dislikes such things, but it's those little quirks that makes a person go from admirable to lovable. "So, we've had my little excursion and plans. Is there something you'd like to do?" he asks, and she nearly snorts the water she's been sipping. "Vernon, did you just compare a murder stroke against one of the most dangerous and pervasive criminal organizations in the history of the Apuk to an afternoon's entertainment? Are you saying you didn't have fun?" he asks, and she has to set the water aside so as not to spill with her suppressed giggles. "I'll take that as a yes." "Oh my goodness, Vernon," she says before just looking into his eyes for a time as he looks back into her. The party seems to melt away, and by the time they regain their senses, they're both leaning right up against one another with their foreheads touching. To be specific, they regain their senses when they detect a pair of small figures reaching around them for the tray of snacks Vernon brought. "You both already had most of a platter between you. I think you've had enough," Vernon says as Mux Morrow and Jeth Erla freeze. "I told you two it wouldn't work," Dale says, walking up. "Come on, you little troublemakers, back to your table." Both children bolt, and Dale watches them until they're in range of their own mothers corralling them. Phew, big party. Not really my scene, too formal and stiff. I'm almost afraid to move in this lacy mess. They're not the most comfortable, no, but so long as Miro Noir likes it, I'll wear it without complaint. "My dear, I want you to be comfortable and content," Miro Noir remarks, and he smiles at her. "And I know that these events are important to you, my love. I want to be there for you," he says, and she goes doe-eyed in an instant. "Not to interrupt your little personal party here," Dale says, and both turn to him. "I need some advice." "With?" Miro Noir asks. "Dealing with a Puck woman, actually. You see, both Jeth and Mux come from single-mother households, and well, I've been more or less the big brother figure during their training, and well, they've taken it more like a father figure, haven't they?" Vernon asks. "And that would mean that both mothers are very, very interested," Miro Noir adds. Yes, that's exactly what's going on," Dale says, and Miro Noir claps. "Congratulations. Hopefully things work out well." "That's all the advice you got?" "I don't personally know either woman. Neither are warriors or princesses as far as I know, and therefore, I don't have any advice beyond the most generic things you could think of. Just be yourself and don't lie." "Oh boy," Dale says. "Relax. These are just some honest, hard-working single Oh, you poor bastard. Everything about this situation screams rom-com to you, and you're not sure whether to run screaming or race forward." Vernon begins to placate Dale before coming to a sudden realization. "Yay," he says, and Miro Noir titters into her hand. "Not very helpful, ma'am." "I'm very sorry,"